This is the fascinating story of how one man's quest for revenge brought down a media empire. Peter Thiel is a successful Silicon Valley venture capitalist. He co-founded PayPal and was an early investor in companies like Airbnb and Spotify. He was even featured in the widely acclaimed 2011 biographical drama The Social Network, played by actor Wallace Longham. The movie portrayed the founding and early days of Facebook and went on to gross over $220 million in the box office. His inclusion was because he was notably Facebook's first outside investor, having invested $500,000 of his own money in the startup back in 2004.
We took a look at everything and congratulations. We're going to start you off with a $500,000 investment.
Thiel's entrepreneurial journey began in 1998 when he invested in the startup company Confinity, which offered a money transfer service called PayPal. He also served as its CEO. Soon, PayPal merged with competitor X.com, founded by Elon Musk, and the rest, as they say, is history. Thiel's windfall from PayPal's sale in 2002 was estimated at $55 million. It is this initial capital that gave him a platform to raise his profile, net worth, and capacity to influence real-world events. He went on to start several venture capital firms, investing in early-stage companies like SpaceX and Lyft on top of Facebook. In 2003, he co-founded Palantir, a big data analytics company boasting government clients such as the CIA, FBI, and the CDC, and commercial clients such as Airbus, AT&T, BMW, Citibank, CVS, Sanofi, Anheuser-Busch, among many others. Another thing about Thiel is that he is deeply political, and very conservative and libertarian at that. After graduating from Stanford Law School, he clerked for Judge Ames Edmondson of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. He then worked for a securities lawyer in New York before taking up a speechwriter position for former U.S. Secretary of Education, William Bennett. Decades later, he would serve on Donald Trump's transition team and even addressed the Republican National Convention in 2016. Thiel famously donated $1.2 million to the Trump campaign, barely a week after the controversial Access Hollywood tape. Inspired and heavily influenced by French author and polymath René Girard, who he met at Stanford, Thiel is a big believer in the mimic theory, or mimic desire, which states that man is a creature who does not know what to desire, instead turning to others in order to make up his mind. This has been a driving force in his investment strategy, where he has demonstrated incredible ability to identify and capitalize on emerging trends in technology. It has also been a driving force in his political activities. In his college days, Thiel co-founded the Stanford Review and served as its first editor-in-chief. The publication was meant to provide an alternative viewpoint to an institution dominated by liberal ideas. In other words, conservative viewpoints. Early issues even went as far as including front-page stories of liberal professors who were, quote-unquote, closet Marxists. Many of its reports and opinion pieces were controversial then, and would be even more so by today's standards. Soon after college, he wrote a book titled The Diversity Myth, Multiculturalism and Political Intolerance on Campus, as part of his crusade against diversity, immigration, and Western liberal democracy. It's impressive he held these views years before they became a central issue in right-wing US politics. Much of his political work nowadays involves funding right-wing politicians and causes, including donating over $30 million to right-wing candidates in Arizona, Ohio, and other battleground states in the 2022 midterms. He has poured money into far-right anti-immigration and anti-welfare nonprofits and other organizations that share his beliefs. One of those being that freedom and democracy are incompatible. Incredibly, he also has spent millions funding anti-LGBTQ candidates. In short, Peter Thiel is a billionaire not afraid to spend money to shape the world as he sees fit. He is tenacious, ruthless, patient, and unwavering when chasing an objective. This is a fact Nick Denton did not know or failed to put into account on December 19, 2007. Nick Denton was the founder of Gawker Media, a company that owns several online gossip publications. Gawker was founded in 2003 and was based in New York City. It was a network of niche blogs focusing on technology, gaming, life hacks, sports, culture, and automotive news. One of these blogs under the Gawker brand went by the name Valleywag and its primary focus was the gossip and news on Silicon Valley personalities. It quickly gained notoriety for publishing stories touching on high-profile individuals, including revelations that Google co-founder Larry Page was dating high-ranking employee Marissa Mayer, who would go on to become Yahoo CEO. Valleywag also publicized private information concerning Google CEO Eric Schmidt's marriage. While other, more mainstream reports in Silicon Valley chose not to report on the stories in order to curry favor with the companies, Valleywag, and an extension Gawker Media, had no such baggage. But what followed after their story on the night of December 19, 2007, perhaps made them regret their carefree and boundaryless attitude. On that fateful night, the website published a blog post, not even 400 words long, outing Peter Thiel as gay. "Peter Thiel is totally gay, people," screamed the headline, authored by managing editor Owen Thomas. To be clear, Thiel was not what would be considered as closeted. His family and friends knew, and it was an open secret in Silicon Valley, but it was simply not a detail that the venture capitalists liked to advertise. The story did not particularly irk Thiel until he scrolled down to the comment section and found a comment that really got on his nerves. It was not from any random internet troll, but rather from Nick Denton, the proprietor of Gawker Media. In the comment, Denton wondered why Thiel was not more open about his sexuality. The only thing that's strange about Thiel's sexuality, why on earth was he so paranoid about his discovery for so long, he wondered. On top of that, he named a guy called Matt as the venture capitalist's secret boyfriend. Years later, Thiel would marry Matt Danzeisen in Vienna. Speaking to an author much later, Thiel revealed that it was Denton's comment rather than the article itself that really angered him. "It was like a full-on attack out of the blue. There was nothing I had ever done to these people in any way whatsoever," he said. Thiel was mad and was about to throw everything except the kitchen sink at Denton and his media company. What followed is a story worthy of a Hollywood blockbuster. To be fair, Valleywag did run several other negative but largely accurate stories about Peter Thiel. For example, a few months later in 2008, they published a headline, "Facebook backer wishes women couldn't vote." This was after Thiel made a comment about how the right to vote for women had been damaging to libertarian causes. Owen Thomas, the same author that outed him, wondered in the article whether Thiel was on drugs. Thiel's comments and Valleywag's headlines appeared to have a real-world effect, because within just a couple of years, the assets under management by his hedge fund, Clarium, went down from $8 billion to under $1 billion. By this time, it was not just Gawker publishing negative headlines about him, but rather everyone. But he never forgot who started it. In his own words, he said that Valleywag and Gawker were just like Al-Qaeda, and later stated referring to the company as MBTO, the Manhattan-based terrorist organization. Thiel figured that he'd likely never get on the good side of Gawker, and future negative headlines may cost him millions, if not billions. Now that he was heavily reliant on image-conscious government and big business contracts, taking out the enemy was also a matter of survival. To understand a bit about Peter Thiel the man, he is obsessed with Machiavelli and strategy games. He sees everything like a chess move, silently strategizing to destroy his enemies. He is patient, and he knows when to strike. Indeed, it would be many years before he had the last laugh. He just tried appeasement, including holding meetings with a Gawker editor and several other journalists, but there was little headway. Facebook's first president, Sean Parker, who had also on many occasions found himself on the wrong side of Gawker, suggested to Thiel that they team up and buy the media company, then change its editorial direction. But Nick Denton, himself a millionaire, wasn't selling. On the 6th of April 2011, Peter Thiel traveled to Germany to speak at a conference. For dinner, he hosted a confident and ambitious 26-year-old man, whose identity has never been revealed. Everyone involved in this conspiracy calls him Mr. A. Thiel had met him on a university tour a few years before. Mr. A was here to make a pitch. He had a proposal on how to take down Gawker Media. The website had published hundreds of thousands of articles about many different people over the years, sometimes defaming them. The young university student had even identified a few promising names, and was here presenting a comprehensive plan and a timeline of 3 to 5 years. Oh, and he was also asking for a budget of $10 million. The dinner meeting ended at 3 a.m., and the venture capitalist was so impressed by Mr. A's ambition and naivety that he committed the full amount. A few weeks later, Mr. A was done with his final exams and soon joined Thiel at his home in New Zealand for the planning. Regular meetings would continue for months, exploring various angles, including the possibility of suing in the United Kingdom, a country more favorable to lawsuits against publishers. A year later, Mr. A recruited Los Angeles attorney Charles Harder into the conspiracy. After exploring different options, including bombarding Gawker with lawsuits and unsustainable legal bills, Thiel opted to litigate and only fund lawsuits that were expected to survive appeal. It had been a long time since Gawker's first hit piece on him, and he was no longer doing this guided by anger. His patience had allowed him to think clearly, and now, instead of a haphazard artillery strike, he would launch a precision-guided missile and leave no survivors. The opportunity to destroy Gawker Media presented itself on October 4th, 2012, when the website published another story, which in hindsight they frankly wish they hadn't. The story involved WWE superstar Terry Boella, professionally known as Hulk Hogan. Gawker editor AJ Delario published a 2-minute extract from a 6-year-old video of Hogan sleeping with his best friend's wife, Heather Clem. At least 10 seconds of that clip contained explicit material. It's a complicated story, but here's the rundown. In summer of 2007, Hogan's marriage was breaking apart. His wife had just left him, and his best friend, Todd Clem, aka Bubba the Love Sponge, offered the help. Bubba was a syndicated radio host who also happened to be in an open marriage with his wife Heather. With his invitation and full consent, Hogan went to Bubba's home. What happened in Bubba's bedroom is best left to the imagination, but he filmed everything with a hidden camera, and this happened on many occasions. Eventually, Hogan would move on and begin rebuilding his life, all this time oblivious of the fact that his tapes were in his best friend's drawer. He was even unaware that they were stolen in 2011 and were now in a stranger's possession. So confident was he about the tape non-existence that soon after the story broke on TMZ in March of 2012, he went on Howard Stern and lied about that exact question.
Would you ever have it?
No.
You would not?
No. Man law, brother.
You would honor that man law?
Yeah. Even if they were divorced for 10 years.
TMZ had claimed that they had watched the video, although they actually did not post it. In late September that same year, an unsolicited envelope arrived at Gawker offices, with no return address. Inside was proof of what TMZ first reported 6 months earlier, an unedited 30-minute DVD of Hulk Hogan in his best friend's bedroom. TMZ could not publish it, despite having paid $10,000 for it. Other gossip websites could not publish it either, but Gawker had no similar reservations. The publication trimmed it to just 1 minute and 40 seconds, and 7 days later, on the 4th of October 2012, the video was published under the following headline: "Even for a minute, watching Hulk Hogan have in a canopy bed is not safe for work, but watch it anyway." Hogan's attorney quickly sent a cease and desist letter, noting that the recording was made without consent. Soon, the wrestler found out that his best friend was behind the recording, and he went thermonuclear on everyone. He informed the media of his intention to sue, and just like that, the wrestler caught the luckiest break of his life, and Peter Thiel finally found his guided missile. Attorney Charles Harder, who until now had been looking at Gawker's archives, realized the significance of the news that was unfolding in real time. He quickly made contact with Hogan and signed him as a client. Thiel gave the green light. He would fund Hogan's lawsuit, and just like that, the beloved wrestler was brought into the conspiracy. On the 15th of October 2012, Hulk Hogan tweeted, "Now my actions will speak louder than my words." It was go time. A few hours later, he accompanied his attorney Harder to the 6th Judicial Circuit Court of Pinellas County, Florida, to file his lawsuit. He was seeking $100 million in damages. Other lawsuits were filed in state and district courts against Bubba and Heather Clem, but those would later be consolidated. Early on for Thiel and Hogan, it was setback after setback, including a denied temporary restraining order to take down the tape on the 22nd of October, barely 7 days after filing the suit. In late October, Hogan offered his now former best friend Bubba $5,000 and accepted his apology in return for the copyright to the video. Charles Harder believed that they had a better chance pursuing the copyright angle. On November 14th, a judge ruled that the tape could remain up on Gawker's website until the case is settled, dealing another blow to Hogan. As we know, justice tends to be slow. The lawsuit took many turns and twists, with Gawker appearing to be in a great position for most of the time. After a series of several defeats in federal court, Hogan and his co-conspirators were forced to retreat to a state court in Florida. Here, the strategy changed to one of attrition, meaning sustained attacks on the enemy to wear them out financially. It is worth noting that Gawker was funding their legal defense using a $750,000 legal defense insurance. The company was in a good state financially, expecting revenues of $35 million that year, but their adversary was a billionaire with a $10 million budget. Gawker did not have $100 million to pay Hogan, not even half of that. For most of the time, neither Nick Denton nor most people outside the conspiracy knew that there was big money behind this case. In fact, the general thinking was that Gawker would come out on top after bankrupting Hogan. In short, Nick Denton did not know his enemy. "I don't really understand the logic. I don't understand what they want," Denton told a reporter in the early stages of the lawsuit. "I find their motivations hard to follow. I don't really understand the relationship between the lawyers and Hogan. I don't understand who is getting what out of this. It must be very expensive for them, and I don't see that they have a particular prospect of some kind of mega payday. Sometimes it's hard to deal with seemingly irrational antagonists," he concluded. Denton's seemingly irrational antagonist happened to be a perfectly rational billionaire with a plan. Gawker's legal strategy was to punish Hogan financially by drowning his counsel in discovery and employing other tactics to prolong the litigation. Harder and Hogan played along, regularly filing motions to be reimbursed legal fees, and on multiple occasions accusing Gawker of trying to make this case as expensive as possible, careful not to give any hint that behind the lawsuit was a near bottomless pocket. Denton and Gawker's counsel were not completely misguided to think that this lawsuit would be thrown out. Every case against Gawker up until this point had either been thrown out or settled, including one that involved Sarah Palin. They even admitted to the New Yorker to receiving at least one cease and desist letter per week. This one appeared to them as yet another piece of cake. But Hulk Hogan needed this. You see, his $25 million home had recently just been sold for $6 million. His wife had left him and taken 70% of their assets as part of the divorce settlement. The former WWE superstar had lost almost everything, including friends. A desperate claimant and a determined billionaire would prove to be a lethal combo. To make matters worse for Gawker, in March 2014, their general counsel met Hogan's counsel and offered terms for settlement. In it, Gawker would allow Hogan to dismiss the suit, and in exchange for them not demanding he paid their attorney fees. It was an insulting offer that only made Hogan mad and more determined, and once again demonstrated that they truly did not know or understand their enemy. Secrecy was paramount. If word of Thiel's participation came out, it would have thrown a spanner in the works. Juries are not too kind to billionaires, and neither is the media. Even Harder's law practice employees were under the assumption that Hulk Hogan was paying his own legal bill. Gawker once came close to finding out the truth in December 2013 when they pushed back on Charles Harder's document request, accusing him of representing at least one other client. Had they dug deeper, perhaps they could have figured it out. Importantly, neither attorney Harder nor Hogan himself knew who the benefactor was until after the verdict. Mr. A was their only contact point. The case dragged its way through the legal system, as they always do, suffering multiple setbacks, expected and unexpected. To inflict maximum damage, Thiel funded some other secondary cases against the publication, using Harder and his firm. The strategy was to exhaust Gawker's legal capabilities, and also to hedge their bets in case the Hogan suit did not go as expected. One of these secondary war fronts was suing Gawker on behalf of unpaid interns they had long been using. This suit was filed in 2013 and was immediately picked up by major publications. In this case, Gawker ultimately emerged victorious, but for the first time, its public reputation took a hit. Another 2014 story about a relationship cheating drama between a Gawker writer and a game developer also changed the public perception of the media organization. There was even a campaign to pressure Gawker advertisers to cease advertising on the website. The facade of an ethical underdog reporting on the misdeeds by the elites was gone. The jury was now prepared to listen to the case without that filter. Towards the end in the Thiel camp, there was increasing confidence that they would win. The billionaire even paid for 2 separate mock juries, and Hogan won both times. But a foregone conclusion to them, the question was how much Gawker would be ordered to pay. On Friday, March 18, 2016, after deliberating for 6 hours, the jury in Pinellas County, Florida, awarded Hogan $115 million in damages. Astoundingly, $15 million more than he had asked for. This award was compensatory, breaking down as follows: $55 million for economic harm and $60 million for emotional distress. Gawker was fined a further $25 million as punitive damages, bringing up the total to $140 million. Less than a month later, on the 10th of June 2016, Gawker Media filed for bankruptcy. Rather than launch a costly appeal, the company reached a $31 million cash settlement with Hogan in November of the same year. Up until the final judgment, attorney Charles Harder did not know the identity of his benefactor, and rather awkwardly found out one morning in 2016 while dressing for work. A reporter called him requesting a confirmation or denial that Peter Thiel was behind everything. At the end of the day, it was probably inevitable that Gawker would be sued to bankruptcy. Running concurrent with the Hogan lawsuit were other suits by the likes of the Daily Mail, Quentin Tarantino, their own insurance company, and more. After the bankruptcy, company assets were sold to Univision Communications.